Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the Fantasy Football Week 6 quarterback starter sits. I'm going to be specifically talking about my two starts and my two sits at the quarterback position as we enter Week 6 of the regular season, and also be going over my 1 through 18 quarterback rankings to give you guys, the viewer, a better opportunity to kind of get into my brain on how I think Week 6 of the regular season is going to break down in the fantasy perspective. Now, before we begin, I just want to thank all of you who have subscribed. If you haven't yet and you like the content and you want to see more, go ahead, click the subscribe button. If for those of you who can't get enough, there's a little bell button. If you click that, it'll give you a notification every time one of my videos comes out. Now, other than that, I just want to thank you guys again. Appreciate the support. If you have any questions, go down to the comment section and we will have timestamps below. So check those out. Hey, everybody, how's it going? All right, we're here. It's Week 6, and we're talking quarterback, shall we? We got ourselves Jameis Winston and Andrew Luck as my two starts of the week at the quarterback position for Week 6 of the regular season. Now, what am I thinking, right? I'm thinking Jameis Winston has a really damn good opportunity this week. Now, why is that? Well, the Atlanta Falcons give up a lot of points to the quarterback position, and in general, they give up a lot of points, period. That defense has not been great this season. They've been battling with a lot of injuries. A couple players in the secondary out for the rest of the season early on in the year. I don't think that this Atlanta Falcons defense is going to be able to shift the tide and be able to stop the bleeding at all. Jameis Winston, yes, he's replacing the Fitzmagic. Many of you have prospered from the Fitzmagic, but I think Jameis Winston rest of season is going to be a good quarterback. Throughout his career, Jameis Winston hasn't been terrible. He's been a 4,000 passing yard quarterback, 25-ish touchdowns a season. 2 weeks ago when we last saw him against the Chicago Bears, he was put into a game in the second half which was far over, but he was still able to, drive his team down and score a touchdown. Yes, he threw 2 interceptions, but I'm not buying into that. I'm talking about playing against the Atlanta Falcons this week, a team that's given up countless points to the quarterback, right? This past week against Ben Roethlisberger in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues gave up 27 points. The week prior to Andy Dalton, they gave up 30 fantasy points to Andy Dalton. Okay? The week prior to that to Drew Brees, guess what? 46 points. 46. And the week before that, what a surprise. Cam Newton had 33 fantasy points. Every quarterback they've played against, except for obviously Nick Foles in week 1, has been fantastic. I mean, this defense, they can't stop anybody. I think with Jameis Winston surrounded with the talent that he has, a pretty consistently good offensive line, Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, Chris Godwin, you don't have to worry about him scoring points. He's going to score fantasy points, as in Jameis Winston. He's going to score. Right, he has too much talent surrounding him, and it's too good of a matchup. I like Jameis Winston this week. He's been good in his career. I understand that there are some games where he'll throw 3 interceptions, but if this is the game, he'll throw 3 touchdowns before he throws 3 interceptions, or at least at an equal pace. My next start of the week at the quarterback position, we have Andrew Luck, a guy that I've mentioned a lot this week, even in my running back video. I talked about Andrew Luck a good amount. Why? Because Andrew Luck loves, it's not that he loves to throw the ball. Obviously, he's a quarterback. He wants to throw the ball. That's his job, right? He's the leader of this team. But as of the last 2 weeks, Andrew Luck has been just a complete, I don't know. How do I explain this? He's just like he's like a rubber band gun. They just keep shooting shit. Like, I don't understand. They've thrown the ball 62 times, okay, in week 4 against the Houston Texans, and they followed that up on Thursday night with 59 passing attempts against the New England Patriots. I understand both these games forced Andrew Luck to throw the ball, but this entire season, Andrew Luck has been forced to throw the ball. Andrew Luck, he's not getting much help from the running game. With his weapons like T.Y. Hilton, Eric Ebron, Chester Rodgers, they're going to be successful because, of the opportunity that they're given. Andrew Luck this week against the Jets defense, I don't think he's going to have much trouble. And even if he does, let's say, for example, the game script is the way that we want it to be. And we want Andrew Luck to consistently try to go down the field and score. That's what we want. I don't see the Indianapolis Colts scoring a bunch of points and getting away from this game and having to, run the ball and force the clock out. I see Andrew Luck throwing the ball 50 times and having himself another good game because he's talented and he makes the guys around him that much better. I like Andrew Luck this week, a guy that I've been down on in the last couple of weeks, but by all means, he has been fantastic, and I think he's going to continue his streak of just complete dominance in fantasy. I like Andrew Luck this week. And let's not forget, he was top 3 in each of the last 2 weeks. He's been number 3 at the quarterback position by the end of the week in 6-point per passing touchdown league. So don't sleep on that man. All right, my 2 sits of the week, Ryan Tannehill and Dak Prescott. Man, Ryan Tannehill, a complete 180 on his performances in the first 3 weeks of the regular season, right? And, Ryan Tannehill was able to throw a total of 7 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions, which was great, right? Ryan Tannehill was consistent. They were scoring points. They were 3-0. Okay, that's fantastic. The last 2 weeks, Ryan Tannehill has been 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. The offense has been sputtering. His leading receiver this past week was Kenyon Drake. I don't think against the, Chicago Bears defense, the Khalil Mack coming off the edge, I don't think Ryan Tannehill is going to find any success this week. He is going to have a hard time even moving the ball, much less being able to score fantasy points. I think the way that the Dolphins offense is set up with these receivers, Kenny Stills, Albert Wilson, Jakeem Grant, these are speedsters. They are not, they don't have Jarvis Landry. They don't have the guy to catch the ball. I thought that was going to be Kenny Stills this year. That's why I thought they were going to put him in the slot and they were going to use him and throw him the ball 8 times a game. That is obviously not the case. Devontae Parker has not shown up. Mike Gesicki is not being used as much as he probably should be. And the running game, you've heard me talk about it. When Frank Gore is getting majority of the carries out of this backfield and Ryan Tannehill is getting more designed runs than Kenyon Drake, there is an issue. I still don't think Ryan Tannehill can, at any means, be touched this week. Maybe if you play in a super flex and you're extremely desperate, even then, I don't see Ryan Tannehill as a serviceable start at all. He is he's a ticking time bomb, and especially this week against Khalil Mack and the Bears defense that honestly could be one of the best defenses in the league as of right now. So Ryan Tannehill is a sit for me this week. Another quarterback in a difficult matchup, we have here Dak Prescott playing against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are fantastic against, quarterbacks, right? They made Patrick Mahomes look like an inexperienced rookie last week. Imagine what they're going to do to Dak Prescott, a guy who's been, by all means, just terrible this season, has not looked great. There's been a couple games and a couple instances that he makes great plays. But as of the last couple weeks, he hasn't been consistent enough to prove to anybody that he can start, especially against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're going to fill the box. They're going to force Dak Prescott to try to score with throwing the ball. I don't see him doing so. There are going to be many turnovers, and it's going to help the Jacksonville Jaguars. Dak Prescott, for sure, a sit this coming week. Now, before we move on ahead, I just want to give you guys a heads up. Again, I cannot predict the future. The rankings that you are about to see are, in my opinion, the best possible outcome that I can perceive going into week 6 of the regular season. If I was able to perfectly and accurately guess every single ranking and every single performance, trust me, I wouldn't be here recording a video at 10 o'clock at night. I'd be in Vegas making it rain and enjoying myself. Anyway, these rankings are for you to kind of get you an idea of how I think this week is going to go for the regular season and for your fantasy teams. So let's begin, shall we? We have here the week 6 quarterback rankings. We have number 1, Patrick Mahomes, playing against the good old New England Patriots defense, who is extremely susceptible to anything that is relevant, right? Honestly, the Patriots defense has not been great this year. They let Blake Bortles drop 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. This past week, Andrew Luck, without T.Y. Hilton, without Marlon Mack, without Jack Doyle, was able to be, a fantasy prospect that scored what? He was the third best quarterback in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. The only, quarterback performance this season that hasn't been great was Ryan Tannehill against this team. I think on Sunday Night Football, the Chiefs, the Patriots, it's going to be a shootout. That's why I also have Tom Brady too, but more specifically, Patrick Mahomes, with the weapons that surround him, with his cannon of an arm, he's going to have to, outscore the Patriots if he wants to win this game. I think Andy Reid is up for the task. He is going to be scheming. This is the game that many people believe is going to be the AFC Championship game, as we can see, going into the future. So this is going to be a very telling game. Both of these teams want to win, right? The Patriots need a win, and the Chiefs, they want to stay undefeated. They want to be 6-0. So it's going to be a fantastic game. I think Patrick Mahomes, the way he's performed this year, especially against defenses that have struggled against the passing game, I think Patrick Mahomes is going to have a great game. That is why he's my number one. He is the almighty. He is the must start. But again, he's not my start of the week. Why? Because I don't go for those low-hanging fruits. Number 2, we have Tom Brady. Same matchup. This is the thing, right? I always like to try to lean towards games that I think are going to be shootouts, because both quarterbacks seem to prosper very well. I think Tom Brady could potentially have a better game than Patrick Mahomes. It really just depends on whose defense is going to cause more turnovers and who's going to have that running back that steals the ball in the red zone. I think Kareem Hunt is more likely to, have a couple rushing touchdowns rather than, James White and Sony Michel, right? So as of right now, I think Tom Brady just a little bit behind Patrick Mahomes. I even think that Chiefs defense is a little bit better than the Patriots defense, because, if Eric Berry comes back, they can shift the tide. They can be a little bit better. They have a pass rush. They have Justin Houston coming off the edge. That's what you need to disrupt a guy like Tom Brady. You need to be able to score points offensively, which they're able to do with the Kansas City Chiefs, and you need to be able to disrupt Tom Brady with that pass rush. They're going to be bringing with Justin Houston, D Ford coming off the edge. I think they're going to have a good opportunity. That's why I have Tom Brady at number 2 comparatively to that number 1 spot. So, number 3 at the quarterback position. What a surprise. Oh my God, we have Aaron Rodgers at number 3 playing against the 49ers this coming week. Aaron Rodgers with, honestly, some guys that, they have names, right? And they have some pretty interesting names, right? Valdez-Scantling, Equinemius St. Brown, right? Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And then you have Devontae Adams. But this past week, Aaron Rodgers was able to prove it does not matter how many points you're down. Aaron Rodgers is going to continue to throw the ball. He's going to score points. Unfortunately, Mason Crosby wasn't able to get themselves into the situation they wanted to get themselves into. But there were a lot of opportunities, right? Mason Crosby missed 4 field goals. But that just means that there were 4 separate drives that Aaron Rodgers wasn't able to get it done. Right? That's the way I see it. I'm sure that's the way that Aaron Rodgers sees it. Going forward, I think against the 49ers, he has a very good opportunity. The 49ers, offensively aren't going to be able to move the ball like any other team. They're going to struggle with C.J. Beathard. Even though Beathard had a good week against Cardinals this past week, I still think Aaron Rodgers on Monday Night Football is going to have a good long week of rest. He's going to be, fantasy relevant. And, he's Aaron Rodgers, guys. He is the GOAT for a reason. He's going to prove it. He's my number 3 this week. Number 4, we have Cam Newton coming off a great performance where he was able to spread the ball out, right? Even with guys like DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel, who haven't been used throughout the offense this coming season, prior to last week, he was still able to find them. They were still able to be relevant. There are a lot of pieces on this Carolina Panthers team that make Cam Newton that much better, with hopefully Greg Olsen coming back this week. That's going to make Cam Newton even that much more valuable. What Drew Brees was able to do last night to the Washington Redskins defense makes me extremely concerned if I'm a Redskins fan by any capacity. That defense did not look great. and Cam Newton will also be able to expose them. Therefore, I have him at number 4 this week. Number 5, we have Ben Roethlisberger playing against the Cincinnati Bengals. This is an in-division. This is a matchup hello? This is a matchup that is within the division. I think Ben Roethlisberger, they need the win, right? They went out and they absolutely shellacked the Atlanta Falcons at home last week. This is another game they need to continue to win. They need to continue to feed Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, and James Conner in order to set themselves up. This is a team that still wants to make the playoff. It's playoff or bust. Honestly, for this team, they're a continuous Super Bowl or bust kind of team, right? Because we know that they have the talent. They have the trifecta. As soon as Bell comes back, they have that Illuminati triangle of players, right? We know that their defense isn't great, but they'll progress as the season gets along. I think as of right now, against Cincinnati Bengals, a defense that is not great, I like Ben Roethlisberger at number 5 this week. I see the Steelers continuing to win games. And how do you win games in this league, especially when you have a bad defense or inconsistent defense? It's scoring the ball. That's what Ben Roethlisberger is going to do. Number 6, we have Jared Goff. Even though it is against the no-fly zone, right? Todd Gurley is going to set up majority of this offense, no matter whether Brandon Cooks or Cooper Kupp plays. Yes, it's going to hurt those specific players, but Jared Goff is good enough of a quarterback to find Robert Woods, Josh Reynolds, Tyler Higbee within this offense, and obviously Todd Gurley in order to make himself fantasy relevant. I still think that he is a very good start for this week. I do not trust that defense of the Denver Broncos. They showed that they can't be trusted. When Robbie Anderson is burning you and Isaiah Crowell is burning you, 2 guys that honestly shouldn't be doing that on a weekly basis, there is going to be great opportunity for Jared Goff. I like him at my number 6 start. Don't let this past week's inefficient performance with 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, don't let that kind of turn him sour to you. He is still a great quarterback. He is still Jared Goff, a guy that leads an offense that scores 30 points a week, right? Something you can't sleep on. Number 7, we have Kirk Cousins of the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins this past week wasn't great, but again, he is still a good quarterback in the NFL. There's nothing that you can't argue it. 300 passing yards, a passing touchdown. I understand you probably wanted 3 passing touchdowns against the Eagles. That's just not how the game went. This coming week, they play against the Cardinals, a defense that honestly gives up a lot of points on the ground. And I don't think that this defense, I understand the secondary has not given up a lot of points in the passing game, but there's a good opportunity that Kirk Cousins is able to expose them with Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. I think rest of the season, as I mentioned before, Kirk Cousins is a top 12 quarterback. He's a top 8 quarterback. Sometimes he's a top 5. This matchup specifically against that secondary isn't great, especially with Chandler Jones coming off the edge. But I still think fantasy-wise, he's going to be relevant. He's going to be able to score. He's my number 7. Number 8, my first start of the week, we have Andrew Luck. Again, he's going to throw the ball 50-plus times. And when you do that, you're going to continue to get yourself opportunities to make plays. Again, Eric Ebron, T.Y. Hilton, Chester Rogers, Nyheim Hines out of the backfield, Corey Grant. He has weapons around him. Yes, they are not premier guys, except for, as of right now, T.Y. Hilton, who's been more consistent over the years. But they are going to be a good bunch to be at least relevant against the Jets, enough to a point where you get Andrew Luck out there on the field scoring, 27 points in fantasy. That's pretty good, and I think it's possible for this coming week against the Jets. Number 9, we have Matt Ryan, another guy that you should not be worried about. I understand this past week's performance was not great, but they play against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the last time we saw the Buccaneers defense, Mitchell Trubisky dropped 6 touchdowns on them. Now, what does that exactly tell me? That tells me that, this defense is completely horseshit. There's a possibility that they've gone into the bye week and completely improved. But I think, with the deficiencies of the Atlanta offense and the deficiencies in the secondary, especially for the Tampa Bay defense, the Tampa Bay front 7 is pretty solid. Everything behind that, not so much, right? As of right now, I think Matt Ryan can still be a top 12 quarterback in fantasy. I don't think last week defines him. I think going forward, he's still going to be relevant. That's why he's my number 9 this week. Number 10, my last start of the week, we have Jameis Winston, also attached to this Matt Ryan game. I honestly believe he's going to have a decent game. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick, yes, he was able, he performed, right? He wasn't able to do it just off of not trying. He put in full effort. He was with the team the entire offseason. He found himself some rapport with these receivers, and they were an electric offense. Hopefully, Jameis can pick that back up with Cameron Brate, Deshaun Jackson a little bit, obviously Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, maybe, find themselves a running game, especially against the Falcons. I think Jameis Winston can be extremely fantasy relevant, playing and starting his first, or not playing, but starting his first game of the 2018 season. He's my number 10. Number 11, we have Phillip Rivers playing against the good old Cleveland Browns, right? I don't think that the Cleveland Browns defense should scare you. Yes, the the Ravens weren't able to do much, but to be honest, this Chargers team is a good team. I don't look at their record. I do not believe in looking at that garbage. They played against some high-scoring teams early. They had to play against the 2 undefeated teams in the NFL. They played against the Chiefs and they played against the Rams very early in the season. That is going to shift their their record to obviously 2 losses in a row, right? But the thing is, Phillip Rivers is extremely talented. He's continuing, old man Rivers, to produce on a weekly basis. Fantasy-wise, he is an absolute stud. He is extremely consistent. He is my number 11 this week. Number 12. Guys, I said it yesterday in my video. Every time I talk shit about Russell Wilson, he ends up performing. So here it is. Russell Wilson, you're going to be terrible this week. You're going to be the worst. We should not start you. We will not start you. But by all means, you're just terrible, Russell Wilson. And hopefully you take these words to heart. Okay. Hopefully that gets the job done. Otherwise, he's my number 12, people. Number 13, we have Carson Wentz, who, they need to find a win. Man, this Eagles team is 2-3. That's coming off that Super Bowl. I understand, they've been riddled with injuries. Carson Wentz and Alshon Jeffrey were not healthy at the beginning of the season. Jay Jai just coming off and tearing his ACL. It's unfortunate, but I think Carson Wentz, top 13, is a pretty good spot for him against the good old, where do we have him? New York Giants on Thursday Night Football. Giants defense isn't great, especially with what Carolina was able to do against them, but I don't think they're a pushover defense to the point where, Carson Wentz should be a top 5 quarterback this week, but I think he'll be serviceable enough, especially in your deeper leagues where, perhaps you have a bye week or an injury. Carson Wentz is a pretty good option. Number 14, we have Deshaun Watson. Against the Cowboys, I told you he'd struggle, man. The Cowboys defense is something that you should not sleep against, but he's getting better, right? He's consistent enough to where, okay, we can start him kind of every week. Honestly, Deshaun Watson should have had 3 touchdowns this past week. They had multiple opportunities in the red zone to score the ball, plain and simple, right? The play calls were not great. The execution was not great. It did not favor Deshaun Watson in the fantasy aspect. And then obviously at the end of the game, they ended up winning in overtime. But in the fantasy perspective, it really didn't do him any favors, right? They play against the Buffalo Bills, which by all means, as of late, have been a pretty good defense, right? One week they'll smack the Minnesota Vikings. The next week they're going to get shut out and completely dominated by the Packers. Then the following week, they beat the 3-1 Tennessee Titans, who by all means looked great the week prior. I think the Bills defense is something to keep your eye out on, and it's something that could affect Deshaun Watson this coming week. I think there's a reason to be concerned, and that is why I have my number 14 this week. Number 15, we have Andy Dalton. I do not think Andy Dalton should technically be this low, but I have a feeling that the Steelers defense could have a good game, right? This is a division game. This is a division rivalry. The Steelers are looking to find themselves some W's so they can finally break that 500 mark on the season. I think, what are they? 2-2-1, right? They're pretty much 500, right? They're a little bit better because of that tie, right? No, they're straight 500. What am I saying? Math. Do your homework, guys. Do the math homework, Kappa. Anyway, as of right now, I just don't think that Andy Dalton's going to be amazing. This past week wasn't great. He really got bailed out by that defense and their ability to score. I think he's going to find himself in some trouble this week. That's why he's at my number 15 spot. Number 16, we have Baker Mayfield, the guy that I mentioned in my waiver wire pickups. I think against the Los Angeles Chargers this coming week, could have himself a pretty decent week. And so could many other quarterbacks, right? There's guys like Case Keenum that could have a good week against the Rams, right? There are guys like Sam Darnold against the Colts, right? There are good matchups that I'm not going to mention, right? Even though I'm going to mention Baker Mayfield, Alex Smith versus the Panthers, and Mitchell Trubisky versus the Dolphins, I still think there are other serviceable options. I think Blake Bortles versus the Cowboys could be a good option. Indoors, you don't have to worry about weather. I think the Jaguars defense will be able to clamp up, and it's going to give opportunities for that Jaguars offense to score, right? But then again, the Cowboys defense has been pretty consistent this year, right? Then there's matchups like Joe Flacco versus the Titans. Is that going to do anything? I just personally believe that Baker Mayfield, Alex Smith, Trubisky, they are some guys that you can... Alex Smith did not play well last night. We know that. But Baker Mayfield, he's a guy that has upside. Trubisky, off that performance that he had in week 4, another guy who has upside, right? These are guys that we're aiming towards, that I've put on this list and am mentioning, because if you're very desperate and you're looking for a guy to maybe outplay projections and maybe just be decent, Alex Smith is that safe floor. Baker and Trubisky are those risk plays, right? There are many risk plays. Sam Darnold will be a risk play. As I mentioned before, Blake Bortles. But I just feel like after top 15, I don't know if I can fully trust these guys. I would start them in my leagues, right? I would, if that's the only thing I have left, especially in my super flex, which I play with 2 quarterbacks. It's just very, very specific. Many of you are going to ask, I got Drew Brees on bye week. I got Matthew Stafford on bye week. Would you prefer, Mayfield, Smith, Trubisky, Bortles, Darnold, over, Dalton or Watson because of the matchups? As of right now, it's a coin toss, right? Obviously, I have Watson and Dalton ahead, but there's always possibility that these guys shit the bed. They have bad weeks. And there's always a possibility, just like this past week, just like in yesterday's episode where I talked about quarterbacks. The quarterback position, the top 10 from week 5, the last 4 was Keenum, Sam Darnold. I keep going with Bradford. Sam Darnold. CJ Beathard was on that list. Like, these are quarterbacks that we're not expecting to be great, but end up having decent performances. Why? Because it's fantasy football. You never know how the game script is going to go. You never know who's going to be able to pick up those garbage time points. I think going forward, when you come into the area where you're thinking, who can I stream at quarterback? You want to pick a guy that has a great matchup. We did that last week with Derek Carr. It didn't work out well, right? You want to pick guys that have been consistent. We've done that in the past. We picked up Ryan Tannehill and played him against the Patriots, who is not a good defense. He ended up getting us a goose egg. There are streaming quarterbacks out there. I would just suggest trying to get one of the better, top 15 guys rather than stream, because streaming is very risky. Obviously, we know the inherent risk. Just wanted to warn you guys. That is pretty much my entire spiel. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This has been the Week 6 quarterbacks for the fantasy football. Kicking my beats. I don't know. Either way, I really feel like this Patrick Mahomes Brady game is going to be great. If you have any questions, please go down to the comment section. Ask away. If you haven't already and you like the content, please click the subscribe button. Click the notification bell button to get the notifications on when my videos are posted. And until next time, everybody, I appreciate it. And tomorrow we will have wide receivers and tight ends. It's going to be fun. Wide receiver is usually my longest video of the week, but we'll see. Anyway, I'll see you guys.